Well, this is the first ever episode of Uncorked, the Welsh Wine Podcast.
Woohoo!
Here we are.
Very excited.
I'm Jamie. I'm the host and the curious wine guy.
I'm Sara. I'm the wino expert.
And I'm Angela. I am the resident historian.
Woohoo!
So the purpose of the podcast really was to discuss the Welsh wine industry, Welsh wines, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Well, drinking wine, of
While
course.
drinking wine, we'll come to that.
Make it more interesting.
But before we do that, we want to discuss how we got where we are. So the history of Welsh winemaking is what we're going to cover today.
Yeah.
I've been promised Romans.
Yeah, don't worry. We're going to go in the way back.
The
machine.
way back.
Way back.
Very good. But Sarah, what else are we going to cover then?
So we're going to basically go into a deep dive into the history of winemaking in Wales, Roman times, because I did promise you Romans.
Thank you.
Medieval monasteries and the modern revival, featuring some historical legends who helped put Welsh wine on the map. And we'll probably look at some of the early vineyards that may or may not have survived to this day. So basically, how there's wine in Wales.
So basically 2,000 years worth of history in 45 minutes to an hour.
In a short podcast, yeah. Well, I think it's important that we deal with the what and the where and the how before we move on to maybe some sexier topics.
History is sexy.
Exactly.
That's what I keep telling myself.
You
do
say that,
make
you're
it
a
look sexy.
historian, yeah.
I know, and one day I'll believe it.
You had a teaser for us, Sarah.
Yeah, before we begin, I've got a question for you.
Ooh.
Which grape variety was planted in Wales's first commercial vineyard? I've got options, don't worry. You don't just have to tell me the answer.
Grapes.
Is it A, Bacchus? Actually, I think it's pronounced
Bacchus.
I
think it's Bacchus.
Oh, I just quite like saying Bacchus.
You do you, boo.
Is it B, Gamay Noir? Is it C, Pinot Noir? Or is it D, Chardonnay? What are we thinking?
I'm going to go, I reckon Chardonnay.
Yeah? You think Chardonnay?
Mainly just because I like it a lot.
Because I like Chardonnay and I want it to be Chardonnay.
I was going to say Bacchus because I really like a Bacchus. And there's another reason why I think it might be Bacchus. But I think instead, since Jamie's gone white, I'm going to go red and guess Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir. Okay, cool. Well, speaking of Bacchus,
Yeah.
we are drinking the Bacchus Parva Farm Vineyard 2019 vintage. And didn't you guys go to the vineyard recently?
We
Did you have a
did.
date?
We went on a bit of a road trip.
We did. We had a little date day.
Little date
meet
day.
us time.
Big day out.
How was it? Was it fun?
It was great. Yeah, it was really fun. We went out to Parva Farm, which is right near Tintern Abbey, which I think we'll be saying a little bit about today as well.
It was beautiful.
It's absolutely stunning up
absolutely
there.
Gorgeous.
Met Judith,
Judith, what a legend.
and I think we'll be hearing a little bit from her at some point as well. We had a bit of a stroll around the vineyard and bought some wine, had a bit of a chat, had a great day.
Yeah.
Was that the first Welsh vineyard you guys had been to?
Yeah, it is for me.
I've been to Llanerch, which
Oh, of course, yeah.
is also beautiful.
Yeah, they're all beautiful.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's one of the reasons we're doing this, isn't it? Because generally where wine is made is beautiful countryside and it's Wales. So it's
Well,
awesome.
yeah, I was just going to say, it's like it's wine from Wales. If it's made in Wales, it's going to be pretty.
Yeah, exactly. Well, enjoy, and then we'll have a little chat. I want to hear your opinions on this lovely wine. I'm a huge fan, so it'll be great to get to see what you guys think.
Well, thank you very much. So we will drink that through the episode. You may notice. But before we get into the meat of the episode, we'll take a quick break. Okay, welcome back. I was promised Romans, so we're going to go way back and start from that point.
To quote Dylan Thomas, to begin at the beginning.
Exactly that. So picture this, right? Romans are stomping around Wales. They're conquering and building roads.
What did they ever do for us?
Do you know? And apparently planting vineyards. So according...
Oh, they did that for us.
We've now got wine. So according to legend, Suetonius Paulinus, a Roman governor, brought vines to Caerleon. Now, you're You're a fan of Caerleon, I know.
I love Caerleon.
Do you?
The Romans were there for 300 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just nuts. And I've been to the museum. I'm giving them a plug. So visit Wales if you'd like to sponsor the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Jamie, how often do you think about the Roman Empire?
I'd say daily.
Fair enough.
Is that an actual thing?
Well,
I thought that was a joke.
It's probably like a joke based in truth. Because it's one of those things where it's like, someone's like, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? And then they laugh and it's like, oh, that often.
Yeah, but
it's
I
like
read
a guy
lot
thing.
of Roman stuff. I read a lot of Roman things. I listen to podcasts. I like Romans.
I think it's just a very blokey thing to
I just like Romans.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Fine.
No judgment here.
I never think about the Romans. But I will now because I'm really glad that they brought wines, or vines anyway, to Wales. So now, funnily enough, the climate in Roman Britain was actually warmer than it is today. So it actually makes sense that they would have been growing grapes at that time. There's nothing definitive that proves that there were any vineyards or any grape growing or winemaking at the time. We do obviously know that the Romans were big drinkers, but it's more likely that they imported their stuff. And we know that because of all the lovely clay pots that are on show in Caerleon in the museum.
There are a lot of them. What's the fancy name for them?
Amphora.
Amphora.
Or amphorae for plural.
But when you think about it, I mean, wherever Romans went, they brought their engineering and their architecture and their knowledge with them, and they established that wherever they were. Mm-hmm. So we have Roman villas here in the UK. We have aqueducts. We have roads. Those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Do we have aqueducts?
Actually,
saying that, I know I'm not a Roman historian. Yeah. We have lots and lots of archaeological evidence of Romans.
No, I've seen them aqueduct.
I've seen aqueducts. I've seen them on the continent. I don't actually know about that, but anyway, correct me if I'm wrong. We have lots of archaeological evidence of Romans being here. Yeah. So why wouldn't they bring vines with them, especially if the climate supported their growth? Like it just
exactly.
Absence of evidence is an evidence of absence. So
correct, yeah. And that is absolutely right. So just a little quick fact here for you guys: the wine we're drinking is Bacchus, not Bacchus. Did you know that it's a white variety from Germany, but it's named after the Roman god of agriculture, wine, and fertility?
Oh, yeah, our boy Bacchus.
Yeah, so it's the Roman equivalent to the Greek god of wine, Dionysus, which is funny. I mean, this is me proper nerding out now, but it was only created in 1933 and planted in the 70s, but it's one of the most widely planted varieties in Britain at the moment.
Is it? Oh, I love it, Bacchus. It's funny that because Bacchus, Greek god of fertility, basically, and wine, basically the Roman god of a good time, based on the Greek god of a good time from the 1930s, and that's really not a decade we associate with a good time.
No.
So do with that what you will, but hey, it's a good grape variety. I like it.
So now 400 AD, I'm just going to drop this in. Climate became a lot colder and wetter, so that would have ended any kind of viticulture. So there wasn't really much going on from after the Roman times.
So the Romans left us.
Mm-hmm. So sad.
We're all very sad about that. I am anyway, very much so.
Yeah, of course.
Then we basically had the Dark Ages.
Well, I mean, we don't really call it that anymore as historians, but if there's no wine, I'm going to go ahead and say it was a pretty dark time.
Yeah.
And then we sort of fast forward a couple of hundred years and we get to the monks.
Yeah. So they are the ones keeping the wine flowing. So although records of actual winemaking is quite scarce, it is likely that abbeys across Wales, especially the ones that were known for their agricultural practices, also took up viticulture. Probably for religious reasons, maybe out of boredom. You never know.
And I mean, if we think about certain orders of monks, I think a lot of the monasteries in Wales were Cistercian. Mm-hmm. So that's a French order of monks, and they were known Cistercian.
Fancy word.
That's their
fancy word alert.
The alarm goes off. Fancy word. So Cistercians, they're a French order of Benedictine monks. They're from a particular place in France, and that's where they get their name. But they also are known for controlling the landscape or working with the landscape and changing waterways or watercourses and those sorts of things.
Oh, cool.
But they were heavily involved in agriculture, so it makes sense that wherever they would be, there would be wine. And so it was Cistercians who are at Tintern Abbey, that's a former Cistercian monastery, and that's right by where Parva Farms is.
Yes.
And Jamie and I were at the top of this hill over the vineyards looking down, and you can see Tintern Abbey across the way. And Judith even said that although there's no no written evidence of it, they think that may have been the site of where the monks at Tintern had their vines, and it makes so much sense because it's the only south-facing slope in that entire valley, and you can strategically see the abbey from there. So again, just because there's no record of it doesn't mean it wasn't happening, and I buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few, Tintern definitely, I reckon. There are monasteries in Ceredigion, for example, in Pembrokeshire and Carmarthenshire. They did a lot of farming, so it wouldn't be a stretch that they cultivated vineyards at the time.
They also liked wine.
And they also
monks
love booze.
They really do, don't
monks
they?
love. I mean, for religious orders that are supposed to be austere and abstaining from everything, I mean,
they're just pissheads, aren't they?
Yeah, come on. I mean, what else?
No offense, monks.
Yeah, sorry to all the monks out there.
The late medieval period. What else are you going to be doing? Did you? I mean, this is a random aside, but like, they like to find works around so they could have a really good time because they're monks. They've taken these vows of poverty and chastity and obedience and these sorts of things. They're not supposed to be having a good time, but they found a way. So, because they're Catholic monks, on Fridays they're supposed to abstain from meat. And
oh, really?
It's the same reason why like you have fish on a Friday, because fish, although we can see that as flesh, according to the religious practices, that's not meat. But a workaround for that was because they're like, no, we need to have meat every day. So what they did was basically, and this is just some words, they said, if it dwells in water, it's fair game. So we just don't want like trout on a Friday. We want beaver. So there's the monks munching down on beaver on a Friday, calling it a fish.
Beaver steak and chips on a Friday. That's good.
I'm just imagining like
probably not chips. They wouldn't be having chips. Chips were brought over to England in the
Potatoes.
Elizabethan period. So
potatoes.
Yeah, potatoes.
Yeah. They didn't bring them over as frozen
just
chips.
bring
Bag of McCain's come over.
Yes. Maybe some other root vegetable chip, but yeah, they wouldn't. Beaver's not a fish, and they wouldn't have had potatoes. So I don't know what they're eating on a Friday.
Stop talking about beavers.
God, she's obsessed.
For God's sake.
She's obsessed with beavers.
Right. So back to the wine.
Yeah, please, God, take us back to the wine.
I'm not sure what the quality would have been at that time. Now, another reason why it's likely that these abbeys were growing grapes and making wine is thanks to William the Conqueror and his French abbots who knew their way around a vineyard. So I think things were looking reasonably good for Welsh wine. And again,
so he battered Harold, and then Andy brought booze.
Yeah,
and castles.
And castles.
Yeah, even though we've got like
large.
Welsh castles in Wales, it was the Normans who introduced castle making to the UK.
Fair play.
Now, there aren't any records of any Welsh vines really outside of monasteries during the medieval times, or between then and the Tudors, really. Although there were a couple in England, so it's not impossible. So they could have been. It could be just some guy with some vines in his garden making some wine in his bathtub. We don't know. We can only suspect.
Should also say that in addition to any of the wine being made by monks in monasteries, a lot of the wine consumed outside of monasteries, so by the elite, by royalty, nobility, those sorts of things,
Sure.
it would have been brought over from the continent.
Yeah.
And it got very easy for the English aristocracy to bring over
So nothing
wine.
new there then.
No, nothing new. Exactly. You mean things were easy for the English aristocracy? What? Because in the middle of the 12th century, part of France became English, and it just so happened to be Bordeaux.
I mean, if you're gonna nab a winemaking region
of all the places.
Take Bordeaux.
Bordeaux was part of Aquitaine.
That's
Eleanor
exactly
of Aquitaine.
exactly.
Yeah.
So she married Henry, who was to become Henry II, and then that was the whole like Wars of the Roses after that, and then it was.
But wasn't it part of England for like 300 years? That bit of France.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was during like the Wars of the Roses that it stopped being part of England. It went back to being France in the middle of the 15th century. But yeah, during that time, the wine from that part of France was flowing freely over this way. So there,
long may it continue.
wonder if we can take them back. Does Bordeaux want to be part of Wales?
Yeah, I could see that working.
Let's not cover war And
No, it wouldn't. No, I'm not talking that kind of conquest. It'd just be a friendly handshake where
friendly handshake.
they can have some Caerphilly cheese and we can have some Bordeaux wine. Yeah?
I'm in.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. It's agreed.
Bringing it back then to wine made in Wales, we're at the sort of early modern era now, right?
Yeah.
So 16th century, there's a big chap coming our way.
Very
yeah.
big.
Very big chap.
Quite a square man.
Rotund.
Henry VIII.
Henry VIII, yeah. So he practically killed the Welsh wine industry.
He killed a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, you would know more about this, but he dissolved monasteries.
That's right.
Didn't he? And because it's likely that in Wales in particular, grape growing was confined to monasteries because of those monks. If you're gonna dissolve them, then there's no more winemaking.
Out with the monks, out with the wine making. So just quickly, like the historical background there. In the 1530s, Henry, he was splitting with Rome, essentially so he could get a divorce, but there were other sort of strategic advantages there. He still saw himself as Catholic, but he wanted to make himself the head of the church in England. And that also included, this is a period of the Acts of Union, so Wales at that point, legally speaking, became part of England. Yeah, there's a different podcast, actually several different podcasts in there. So basically he sent one of his cronies, Thomas Cromwell, around to look at all of the monasteries across England and Wales. And he came back finding all of this sort of corruption and all of these horrible things. And then over about a 5-year period in the late 1530s, early 1540s, just did away with all of the monasteries, took them under crown control, and sold most of them off or gave them away to his friends
peeps.
and followers, exactly, to his peeps. And that's why we have the ruins of so many monasteries around these bits, or there's really grand stately homes in former monasteries. But yeah, with that would have gone all of the wine production as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I don't think Henry VIII really cared because he's drinking imported wine anyway. And British taste was leaning towards kind of spirits like gin and fortified wine like port, sherry, Madeira anyway. So shifting from lighter styles of drinks like cider and beers. People basically they want a drink that packs a punch.
So that's when the nanas started drinking sherry then,
Wasn't just the nanas.
around that time.
Yeah. Oh, I love a sherry.
I love a port.
Christmas morning sherry.
The amount of times I'm like, how are you doing today? How was the rest of your evening? And you're like, oh, not good. We opened the port.
The number of times I go out with some friends, go to the pub for a couple of drinks, then end up back at mine
With the port.
I have like a Costco size bottle of
Do you?
like Taylor's port that's now on its last drinks.
Yeah, but our ancestors were doing this, so...
Yeah.
You know.
To be fair, in my house, my mum had to hide the sherry. So my dad was allowed to have a sherry on Sunday morning, but she would have to hide it and she had to move it because he would accidentally find it, and then he's like, "Oh, I found the sherry. You have to hide it again." I just remembered. I've just had this horrible flashback.
I think I need to hide the port on myself, but then I'll be like tidying up. It's like, oh look, port. Speaking of being sneaky with port, it wasn't just Henry VIII and the elite, because of course wine, if you're importing something, it's going to be expensive. The average person couldn't afford to drink wine on a daily basis. Sure. At least in Wales, it would have been more like beer and cider and things that were produced more locally and at the domestic level. Mm-hmm. But that didn't stop people from trying.
Go on.
And we know
this is going to be juicy.
And we know that there was a taste for port and those stronger fortified wines because of the sorts of things that we find in records from smuggling. And Wales loved to smuggle.
Sneaky bastards.
They were. So I don't.
So this is where Sara's dad gets it from. He's sort of hunting down.
It's a proud tradition of this. He's a proud Welshman.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I don't know if it was a taste for this stuff or it's just a taste for things your sticky fingers can get a hold of. But we have so many records during this period, especially during the 18th century, which is the century of trade. Mm-hmm. And expansion and those sorts of things of shipwrecks all along the Welsh coast, especially along the Villa Glamorgan and out Gower Way, and then also up in North Wales as well, sort of along the Denbighshire coastline of shipwrecks, and then people going out and taking whatever they can from it. And it's a lot of things like port, raisin wine. I don't like what's raisin wine?
I mean, that would probably be something like an appassimento. It's an Italian. It's a red wine. It's a style of winemaking where you let the grapes dry out.
Amarone like that.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So basically, because there's less water in the grapes, then you've got a higher concentration of flavour. So that's my educated guess.
So at the very least, those are the wines that were being imported and then shipwrecked and stolen. And if you go along like the Glamorgan coast, there's some amazing like cliff tops with caves in them, or down like Gower way.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, we'd get on the beach. And there's Smuggler's Cove. I forget which beach it is down the Gower now. That would actually.
I've been there too. You kind of have to go if you want to go to the cave. You have to go out during low tide.
That's right. Yeah. And that was actual
smuggling.
That's so cool.
And there's loads of records at the National Library of Wales in the Court of Great Sessions about smuggling and shipwrecking. To be fair, like if you're getting away with smuggling, there's not records of it. So it was happening a lot more than was found. But there's lots of records from shipwrecking. This has nothing to do with smuggling, but there's one case from the early 18th century that I absolutely love, and I'm going to go and look at these records soon. But it's a case of someone stealing wine from a church school.
Interesting. That's wrong on a number of levels.
And getting drunk on it, and it was a spinster named Mary.
Brilliant.
I think Mary and I could be friends.
Good old Mary.
So, Henry VIII did his best to destroy winemaking.
Yeah, did a good job.
Cheers, Henry.
Along with 3 of his wives.
Yeah.
Ouch.
You can't blame them.
No, I'm blaming him.
Oh, fair. But, so we had a long period then where, we were importing stuff or smuggling stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When did it take off again? When did it come back?
Well, basically, an absolute legend stepped up who's called the Marquis of Bute.
Oh,
hey,
yes.
that guy. I've heard of him.
So he decided in 1895 that Wales should have vines again, and he planted at Castellcoch.
Ah.
What?
Yeah, so Castellcoch, the 19th century Gothic revival castle.
And that's just north of Cardiff.
Yes.
On the A470, if you're heading north of Cardiff, it's on your right-hand side.
Yeah, so it's the sort of fairy tale looking Disney castle if you're driving up the valleys. And it is stunning, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. So yeah, just above the village of Tonguinlais. He was actually thought to be the richest man in the world at one point. Obviously, I don't think that's true.
Wouldn't surprise me if you look what he did to Cardiff Castle, just splashing
and
it out.
Most of Cardiff, really.
Well, yeah,
That's
exactly.
true.
And I'm just thinking that like the gaudy bit that you can go as a tourist and look around in Cardiff Castle, which is like over the top. You only do that if you have tons and tons of money. He did that for his wife. She didn't even like it.
Oh, no way. Well, he's obviously got deep pockets, and realistically, you needed deep pockets in order to make a vineyard work in Wales. We'll still do. Yeah. So I asked you a question earlier. Mm-hmm. What was the first grape variety planted in Wales's first commercial vineyard? Right. You said Chardonnay.
I did.
You said Pinot Noir.
Pinot Noir. What were the other options?
Or it was Gamay Noir or Bacchus.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Pinot Noir.
Yeah? Well, the answer was Gamay Noir.
Oh.
So Gamay is the red grape variety that grows in Beaujolais. So if you like a Beaujolais wine.
I love that Beaujolais was the first modern grape grown here. Yeah. And Beaujolais Day is a very...
Swansea institution.
Yeah, it is.
Swansea, it all comes back.
Yeah. Is it Swansea Christmas?
It's bigger than Christmas. Yeah. I can say this as a Swansea boy.
Oh, you're allowed to say that. Okay, that's why I'm not saying anything.
I lived there for a year.
I can mock my people. Beaujolais Day in Swansea is mental. I mean, no one actually drinks wine. They just go out and get drunk. Never mind Beaujolais.
They released the video. They did an interview with a whole bunch of people in Swansea, didn't they? And everyone's like, I don't think I've drank a Beaujolais, actually.
I don't even like wine, really.
And they get up at like 4 a.m. to do their hair and get ready for a day of drinking. It's absolutely insane.
I love it.
I've got so much time for it.
Yeah, we're going.
Can I don the Swansea look as well?
Yes.
Amazing.
Sorry, the Swansea look.
Get me a spray tan.
Let's be all right. I'll take some criticism, my people, but
it's a vibe. It's a vibe, and they're very proud of it, and I respect that.
Fair,
but if you're going to go out in Swansea for Beaujolais Day, I think you probably need to embrace the Beaujolais Day uniform.
Yeah, fair. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
No judgment.
Fair.
So the Marquis of Bute sent his head gardener, Mr. Andrew Pettigrew, to France to learn.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. Pettigrew.
Yeah.
As in, like, Pettigrew Bakeries?
bakery, tea room. Yeah.
Oh,
same guy.
that's where that
Named
comes
after the
from.
gardener.
Named after the gardener.
Oh, amazing. Sorry, cut you off.
No.
Send his bakery boy to to France.
Not a bakery boy.
He sent him to France so that he could learn about winemaking from French winemakers. Obviously, he didn't speak any French, and I don't think the winemaker spoke any English, but he just kind of learnt on the job. So this would have been one of the reasons why they planted Gamay Noir. It kind of makes sense. Beaujolais is... they probably thought it's a lighter kind of red grape variety. It shows more than anything that he actually did learn some things on the job. So now the first few vintages were drastically different, mostly due to weather. I probably put some of it down to lack of knowledge and experience. And there's slightly conflicting information as well. If you go on the Castellcor website, it's like, no, they did really well and it was excellent. And one of the vintages did so well that the project was paid off completely. And then other sources are like, they only managed 7 vintages.
Oh.
I think because of how, just because of the weather and all sorts.
And how long was the vineyard there?
Well, it was eventually pulled up in 1920.
Okay, so in 7 good vintages in
All that
40
time.
years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think.
So were these wines being made to be sold, or were they being made to be drunk by the Marquis and his cronies?
Well, they were actually selling these wines.
Amazing. Okay.
Which were being sold in the Angel Hotel, which is the
okay.
Angel Hotel in Cardiff.
Still going strong.
Yeah, and Cardiff Castle. Now, I think we've actually got a quote from William. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mr. William Pettigrew explained to the Royal Horticultural Society in 1894, boasting about his wares, the ripest and best fruit is gathered first and placed in hogsheads with one of the ends out and carted to the Castle Gardens at Cardiff, where the grapes were pulped by a machine with wooden rollers and put into a large vat to remain for 24 hours to get the tannin properties out of the skins of the grapes. So hang on a minute. Hogshead.
Yeah, what's a hogshead?
That's the bit you pull out.
I'm assuming this has nothing to do with British politics in the 2010s.
I don't get the reference.
Jamie's staring at me blankly like, how dare you say that? There's some lore around Oxford traditions that involve hogsheads. I'm pretty sure it's a little bit different because I don't think that's a unit of measurement. But it's, I'm guessing it has nothing to do with that.
Absolutely nothing
Okay, cool.
to do with it.
All right, good to know.
With hogsheads, I always think of Grandpa Simpson and his old-fashioned measurements. It is an old-fashioned measurement of sorts.
Yeah, it's basically a giant barrel that holds 300 litres, so around 400 bottles of wine.
400 bottles.
Yeah. So I think they do say that there was one vintage that they managed something like 10 hogsheads in 1887. This is probably one of the 7 vintages that actually made the cut. But the wine is described as being soft, sweet, full-bodied, and of a luscious character. But then I've also found information that implies that it was more like a champagne in style. So it's quite, I guess it probably comes down to the vintage and, the weather and how ripe the grapes are. Because realistically, for a champagne style, for a sparkling wine, high acid grapes are actually better. It's really difficult to get to make a red wine. So quite interesting. And
so a Gamay Noir is not high acid.
It could be if it's not
okay.
ripened.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's to do with the climate. You need heat, basically. Wine 101. You need warmth for the grapes to ripen fully, and if you don't have enough heat, the grapes are just going to be high acid, almost like vinegar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
doesn't sound good.
So, but I think it's really cool as well that they had these wooden rollers and large vats, and everything was made in Cardiff Castle.
That's so cool.
So they're carting these grapes down from what is now Tonguinlais.
So if you live in Tonguinlais now, you potentially your house is on where it was a vineyard.
Yeah, you maybe once used to be a vine.
Or a grape.
Or a grape.
Used to be a grape. And I guess that makes sense because really cool. That's super cool. And I guess they would have probably brought it down the Taff.
Oh, Maybe.
Because it's like right there, and it would bring you right to Cardiff Castle.
You used to be able to see, didn't you, from Castell Cork to Cardiff
Yeah,
Castle? Like
they were designed that way, weren't they? So you could see the one from.
If you've got one flamboyant castle, you want to see your other flamboyant castle just down the road.
Literally that. Yeah. Tell me you have money without actually telling me you have money.
Sure.
I'm going to do that. If I win the Euro Millions, I'm going to build 2 castles.
2.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So Lord Bute's experiment was considered a success. He paid off his entire project, apparently, which is great. But then, because of a run of bad weather, World War I, and a lack of sugar, all the vines were ripped up by 1920.
Lack of sugar? So he added sugar to wine? Is that normal?
Well, it's not common practice everywhere, but if you don't have enough sugar in the grapes to create a fermentation, you need a certain amount of sugar. You can add the sugar pre-fermentation. It's called chaptalizing.
Okay.
So you can do it. We do it in Wales.
Oh, okay. So it's not just ropey stuff then?
Yeah, it's not like a Mary Poppins spoonful of sugar kind of thing. It's usually in the form of grape juice, but in this time it probably actually would have been like cane sugar. And it's sad times, but I mean, what a legend. And we've got these lovely castle grounds now. So now we can go to Cardiff Castle and drink wine.
I have had so much wine in Cardiff Castle before. So now I'll do it again and raise a glass to Marquis of Bute and Pettigrew.
So it all came to a bit of an end for the Marquis of Bute and his pretty cool vineyard.
Yeah.
When was there then a bit of a revival then in Wales?
I mean, the modern revival, you'd probably consider the 1960s. So there is a Dr. Idris Thomas.
Oh, Dr. Idris Thomas.
Yeah.
What a great name.
Was he Welsh?
Legend
Dr. Idris Thomas. He planted vines in Llanarth in 1964.
Where's Llanarth? That's Ceredigion way?
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah,
I think so.
It's like near the coast of Ceredigion.
I have to confess, I did Google Dr. Idris Thomas.
Did you?
I did, and turns out he looks exactly as I thought he would. Plaid shirt, wellies, glasses, looks like a music teacher. I think he was a music teacher.
Excellent.
Oh, is that what he was a doctor in?
That's what you want, isn't
he
it?
wasn't a doctor in grapes. He was a doctor in,
I think so.
He sounds like a nice guy.
Well, funnily enough, in the 60s and 70s, you do see a lot of plantings around Britain in general. Obviously, we're focusing on Wales, but there is a quote going around that it was basically retired military men, people with quite a lot of money as well. There's a type. Dr. Idris Thomas, I think, does fall into that category.
Legend.
There was a wing commander. He
Please tell me it was like a wing commander wines.
A wing commander. Oh, again, I think he's probably just retired. He planted in Pembrokeshire. I don't think that vineyard survived. But the one in Llanarth did actually produce 70 bottles a year at first.
Ooh,
it's not quite hogshead.
Buckle up.
But I wanted to mention this one specifically because the wines from this vineyard were produced at Three Quires Vineyard and Winery, just across the border, which is still a really important part of the Welsh wine industry to this day.
That's in Gloucestershire.
That's right. Yeah. So we only have, I think, 3 wineries. 3 wineries in Wales at the moment. So most of the vineyards in Wales, they have to send their grapes over to English wineries.
So if we're carting the grapes across from Wales to England to make the wine there, but it's grown here, that's still it's still considered Welsh wine.
Yeah, it's still technically a Welsh wine. It's like rearing sheep in Wales and getting them slaughtered in English. They're still Welsh sheep. Sorry, that was a really brutal analogy.
It's quite a handbrake turn, that was. Yeah.
All right. Well, since you put it that way,
you get the point.
They slaughter our grapes in Gloucestershire then.
Yeah, so they slaughter the grapes in Gloucestershire. They there's 2 main wineries that a lot of the Welsh vineyards tend to use, including Three Quires, because the ones that we do have. So there is a biodynamic winery. So, of course, you can only use the winery if your grapes are certified biodynamic. So that rules out a lot of the vineyards in Wales. Another one is a low intervention winery. But White Castle has just built their own. They are based in Aberaeron.
Oh, okay.
So they've just built their winery. So cool. I'm hoping that will keep a lot of the grapes, Welsh grapes in Wales. It's
keep
it's
Welsh
great.
grapes Welsh.
Keep them Welsh. Stop taking our grapes.
I mean, Gloucester's pretty close, isn't it?
I mean, at one point it was
Yeah.
Wales, right? Like we all know that.
Yeah.
And they do really good work there, you know. They know what they're doing. So we then get to kind of like the 70s and the 80s. We see more vineyards pop up. A Mr. John Bevan planted in 1975. Glendour in Cowbridge.
Ah,
Yeah,
the wine
still
found in
going.
your finest gift shops.
Yes, that was in 1983, and that obviously still produces wine now. Llanech started in 1986. You mentioned Llanech
Love
earlier.
it. Yeah,
Really
yeah.
cool place.
Nice restaurant.
And that's where they hold the Cardiff, or not the Cardiff, the Welsh Wine Awards.
Yeah.
there, don't they?
Yeah,
Nice.
so I've judged at 2 of the Welsh Wine Awards now. So
Llanech
hopefully-
is really close to the M4 as well.
it's
isn't it?
so
quite
close to the M4.
yeah.
Funnily enough, I actually think, because it seems like such a random place to plant a vineyard, but sometimes being close to a road could potentially be helpful to the
Yeah,
vineyard
yeah.
because of like additional warmth, probably from fumes. I don't know if, like, I know that sounds...
Is that on the tasting notes? Or?
Yeah, just a bit of petrol, smoke. But yeah, I'll get you guys tickets to the next Welsh Wine Awards. That'll be fun.
Yay.
We've got that on record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Provided that I get
Yes.
invited to judge again. Oh my gosh, can you imagine if I don't get...
You
They'll be
could
like,
just do your own
sauce.
judging. Just sit in the corner judging.
Jamie and I will go and judge
Yeah.
for you.
We'll judge.
Cool.
We'll judge your judging.
Not formally, we'll just be in the corner, like the peanut gallery in the corner. This one's
Drinking
great.
all the Welsh wine. That's a good evening. We'll definitely go. Now, we obviously see some heartbreaks as well. There was a vineyard called Monnow Valley in Monmouthshire that didn't make it. There was one in called Brecon Court, I think. But some like Parva Farm, for example,
Hey.
that made
Hey,
it.
Judith.
Yeah, they've stood the test of time, which is great.
The ones that went under, did they go under because the vines failed, or for like financial reasons, or just other reasons that we don't really know about?
More often than not, I think, especially in the 60s and 70s, it's just people who think that they can grow grapes. And so the experience isn't there, the knowledge isn't there. And at that time as well, we were planting lots of German varieties. Again, we'll talk more about this in the next episode, because that was the model that we were basing our climate on, Germany's climate, which makes sense. And there's a lot of research on German varieties doing really well. But I mean, you know, just planting something doesn't mean that you know how to grow. And so either the wines were shit, or the grapes maybe they planted the wrong vines. 'Cause
Right.
the really interesting thing about Wales at the moment is not one site is the same. So if you plant one grape variety in a neighbouring vineyard, that grape variety might not do as well, even though you're in the same region, it's the same variety, but for one reason or another, whether it's to do with the soil or the location of the site, there's just so many variables. And I think people just thought, oh, if we plant it, we can make a wine, and they just weren't working out. But thankfully, we do have a lot of vines and vineyards that survived, and now we've got more than 50 vineyards.
50?
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
And more are being planted every year. When I first started in this industry, which was about 5 years ago now, there were about 30.
Oh, so it's growing quite
It's
rapidly.
growing, and I think it will continue to grow now that there's a bit of momentum.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned there's a few vineyards that are in like Monmouthshire or the Vale of Glamorgan and out Ceredigion way. Does it tend to be those parts of Wales where the vines do well, or like are there particular winemaking regions in Wales, or is it everywhere?
No, there's not one specific region. I mean, we've got vineyards in the Vale of Glamorgan, we've got vineyards in Anglesey, we've got vineyards in West Wales. There seems to be
up north?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to go to a couple of them soon, so I will bring back some wines for you to try. There seems to be quite a heavy cluster in Monmouthshire, but generally speaking, they're just all over the country, because we are, and this is going to sound really wanky now, but we are topographically a very interesting country. So you've got,
to be fair, Wales is. It's
Yeah,
got a lot
mountainous.
going on in a fairly small area.
yeah. So yeah, we've got them all over. We've got more than 70 hectares of vines currently.
Wow.
Which, in the grand scheme of things, when you compare it to England, it's still really, really small. You know, they have hundreds of wineries in England. They produce so many more bottles of wine than we do.
Loads of hogsheads.
Loads of hogsheads.
So many hogsheads. They love a hogshead, they do.
But if anything, I feel like that actually gives us more room to grow because we're so early in this industry. It's such an early time for Welsh wine. It can only grow and get better. And
It's
I think
a fledgling industry.
Oh, it's a fledgling industry. I put down, I think, one of the most important things that has changed Welsh wine in the past 10 years or so. I put down to the Welsh Vineyard Association. I think that has really changed the Welsh wine industry, in my opinion, because there are people now making wine consciously instead of just giving it a go and seeing what happens, like Dr. Idris Thomas. So the Welsh Vineyard Association is basically Welsh winemakers decided to break away from the English-led associations and they set up their own.
Good for them.
Yep. So they help market and advertise Welsh wines through different trade shows and events, on socials, that kind of thing. They provide knowledge transfer sessions, educational sessions. They work with Farming Connect, for example, and Plumpton College, which is a great name.
Wait, what? Plumpton?
Plumpton College. It's the only college in Britain that offers any kind of viticulture courses.
Teach you how to grow nice plump grapes.
Plump grapes.
Plumpton.
Yeah, well,
I love
mean,
that.
it used to be a shed with like a single, like a tiny vat.
Come to the plump shed and see my vat. How did that go?
So that's obviously changed things in the industry as well, both in Wales and England. But I think the Welsh Vineyard Association in particular has done a huge amount for the industry because it's just giving people the knowledge and expertise that they need in order to make a wine and fully understand how to make it properly.
I imagine there's a fair few people who've been there, done that, and you sort of, you're setting up a vineyard, are you?
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Here are some issues I've had.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you compare it to any European winemaking region, they will have had centuries. They've generations of winemakers and grape growers, and they pass on their knowledge to the usually the sons. But they pass on their knowledge and information. And so you get really good at understanding your site, what works well there. We haven't had hundreds of years.
No, it's a complete broken tradition. Like we've covered, it's Romans and then nothing, and then the monks and then nothing.
Yeah.
And then Marquis of Bute and then nothing.
And then nothing.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Idris Thomas, and it's kind of been consistent growing since.
We're turning him into a legend.
And rightly so.
So I think it's a really exciting place to be at the moment because we're actually watching it change. And I think that this is one of the main reasons I got into, that I started the business with a focus on Welsh wine specifically for that reason, because I can see that in the next 20, 30, 50 years, it's just going to be so different. And we were actually witnessing it happen.
So we're drinking Parva Farm's 2019 Bacchus, and as you know, Angela and I went there.
We did.
Yeah.
That was it was really interesting because we went there to pick up the wine, but we also had a really nice chat with Judith, who told us a lot about their experience running the vineyard, their views on it, and everything. She had a lot to say.
We took the vineyard over in 1996. It was planted in 1979 by the previous owner. And when we took it over, it had been quite badly neglected. We bought Parva Farm for the farm, but as I say, the vineyard was already here. And we didn't know anything about vineyards, but we thought, well, as it was here, we'd better try and do something with it. We said, well, we'll give it 4 years and see how we get on. And the first couple of years were quite steep learning curve, I would say. We knew nothing about vines, but we struggled along. We asked lots of questions, had lots of help from knowledgeable people, and just went from there. And the first decent crop we got actually was 4 years. Up to then it had been quite poor because the vines were in quite a bad state when we came. But 2001 we had a 5-ton crop, which of 4,500 vines isn't too bad. And then we went on from there. And most years we've had probably 6 or 7 tons, more than that in good years, because it does vary with the weather.
Judith also mentioned that they're the oldest vineyard in Wales that's still in operation, and they took over in 1996, although the vineyard was established in 1979. And where they're located, we think, and most people think, is probably the same site that the monks at Tintern Abbey had their vineyards on as well.
That's what people say. I don't think there's any definite proof, but it's likely to be because it's such a good site. There's not many south-facing slopes in this area.
She also talks a bit about how people respond when they find out that they actually operate a vineyard in Wales.
Certainly when we first came here 28 years ago, a lot of people who came up would say, didn't know you could grow grapes in Britain, let alone in Wales. And Wales, well, it's always wet in Wales, you can't possibly grow vines there. But it's that has dropped off a bit.
And so Judith also goes into a bit of detail about some of the challenges about making wine in Wales. And she talks a bit about the grapes that they grow here because they can thrive here in Wales.
I mean, the main challenge really here is the weather. Over the years, with global warming, though I hate to mention it, it has become easier to ripen the grapes. The climate has definitely warmed up. Even if it's only a degree, it makes a big difference to the vines. They have that many more what they call degree days where it's hot enough for them to actually be growing and making their grapes ripe. The main variety here is Bacchus, which has been lucky for us because Bacchus has become extremely popular in Britain. It's one of the easier grapes to grow here. And then we have a lot of varieties in small quantities. I don't quite know why he planted it like that. So we've got a lot of old German varieties. We've got Müller-Thurgau, Huxelrebe, Körner, Regner, Ehrenfelser, Reichensteiner, Scheirebe, Ortega, and then a couple of things like Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Auxerre, and Gewürztraminer, all in small quantities, so you can see it's a little bit awkward. The only thing that we've done really differently from when we came here is we planted a variety called Regent, which is another red one. As I say, with the Pinot Noir, very difficult to do red.
And we also asked her what the future was for the Welsh wine industry. Spoiler alert, it's very unclear.
I don't know. It's very difficult to say, isn't it? I mean, my hope is that it will carry on and become a good thing. They certainly have great possibilities with wine tourism in this area because it's in Wales, because it's such a beautiful place. I'm a little concerned with the amount of sparkling wine that's being made, particularly over in the southeast of England. We do produce sparkling in Wales, and yes, it works very well, but I think on the whole, most of the Welsh vineyards are doing still as their main thing, and a bit of sparkling as well, which I think personally is the better way to go, but that's just my personal opinion.
So Judith and her partner Colin, they took over the vineyard in 1996, I think.
Yeah.
I think, they took over in 1996. But that's not their main hustle, it's their side hustle. They took over a farm that just happened to have an existing vineyard attached to it. So they've got cows and sheep, and we were
greeted by sheep when we got there.
They're pretty great sheep. They were right. They're so curious. They were just right there. It's like, who the hell are you? Clearly from the city.
City folk.
The city. Yeah,
You've come to take my wine, haven't you?
Exactly. Clocked us. They've been. One more time.
Bah.
There it is. So they've been running this vineyard as a side hustle, and she let us have a bit of a wander around the vines.
Yeah, I mean, calling it a side hustle, I mean, given that she told us she'd pruned 4,500
4,500, and to be clear, like when they
herself,
and like they took over in 1996, like 30 years ago. Judith has to be retirement age, and she's still out there every year pruning 4,500 vines all by herself, and she just said, no big deal, I take my time with it.
She really enjoyed it.
She does, and it's on a steep slope. This is not a flat vineyard. Like like we were out of breath by the time we climbed to the top of the vineyard, and there's Judith, like
lungs of steel.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we got to the top of that vineyard, and I had a little moment, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
Where I just thought, here we are on a beautiful vineyard, and we're making a podcast. And then we had a selfie.
And we had a selfie, as you do. It's like,
Obviously.
I'm having an emotion. What do? I take a picture
Selfie.
of myself.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned retirement age because they did try to retire. They leased the vineyard out to someone else, and that person gave it back to them after some time. So
We probably could only prune like a fraction of the vines. Are like, oh, this is too much. And Judith's like, oh, give me the shears. I've got this.
yeah, what a legend.
She is. Yeah, she's a powerhouse.
What do we think about the wine?
It's really grassy and herbally, and it's like a lot of the supermarket wines you get never taste like this. Like this tastes like you're drinking the countryside, but the freshness and the greenery of the countryside. It's really like
It's punchy, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's quite, like that's a full-bodied white wine, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Bacchus does tend to be grassy, like you were saying. And this is a 2019 vintage, so this has had, and it's still drinking really well. So it's aged quite a bit. So if you're going to age a white, and I'm not going to lie, most whites are not supposed to be aged past like a year.
See, I did not know that.
Yeah, drink
Red's
it.
fine, but white's not.
Well, I mean, if it's meant to be for early consumption, then you drink it within the first year. I think people assume that wines just get better with age all the time, and it has, but the quality has to be there in the first place. So it shows the initial quality. I definitely agree. It does taste like a quintessential garden of some kind, isn't it? I get like minty notes from it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And when I first drank this, well, whenever it was, it did not have the same kind of pungent aromatics. So I think it's done really well. I'm really into this.
And potentially, if someone wanted to buy a bottle of this, they could get this in all good retailers.
They could come to Vin Van Cymru, vinvancymru.co.uk for all your Welsh wine needs.
There we are. Nice.
That's my plug for the day.
So that kind of leads us nicely to what we're going to discuss next time.
Yeah.
We're talking grapes.
Yeah.
We're talking climate. We're talking how on earth do we make wine in Wales.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to go through that in a kind of hopefully accessible and light-hearted way.
Yeah, I will do my best.
Very good.
Well, we've covered how the grapes got here in the first place. So yeah, in the next episode we'll cover what, I think.
What grapes?
And more importantly, what are we going to be drinking?
We are going to be drinking Avanc 2023 vintage from the Dell Vineyard.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So potentially, if anyone wants to drink along with us.
Yeah. Head to vinvancymru.co.uk and we'll send you a bottle.
Fantastic. Great. So that's basically it today, guys.
Excellent.
From the first episode. We'd like you to follow us on Instagram, Uncorked Welsh Wine.
Yes, please. Exciting.
Yachida.
Yachida.
Look at that.